Hello and welcome to another episode of mHUB Inside. Today we're going to be talking about the iteration process and rapid prototyping, moving from small and cheap to large and cheap, and then potentially a final item of whatever you're trying to make. Move fast and break things, as they say in Silicon Valley. Today we have Seale with us, and we're going to talk about the process that she went through to go from very little, very quick, very cheap, and moving on to something a little bit bigger that's the final size. Not quite the material there yet, but talking about that process.
So welcome, Kat. Kat is a new member at mHUB who joins us with an art and design background. And today we're talking about a furniture project that she's working on. So I'll throw it over to you to tell us a little bit about the concept, and we can look at, where the design is at in its current stage, and how this fits into that.
Yeah, in my work, I'm really interested in highlighting the material qualities of the piece. And here at mHUB, I'm able to rapidly prototype through various different materials with different machines, think about how I can really exploit the machines and push their limitations. Going across scales really helps me understand the form-finding language for the work that I'm developing here. You can see in the rendering that this is being translated to several different products that you will see later being developed across the scale of something small to a larger piece.
Yeah, and this would build, so just so everyone knows what we're looking at, this is just one part of a structure that would become the leg of a table or the back and seat of a bench. So Quinn, prototyping in general, what's the quick take?
So, always start as simple as you can. So, the cheapest material you can, because most likely you're going to run through several different iterations of the shape and the form. You don't want to start with the really expensive stuff first, because you're still flushing it out, bringing it out from your head and onto a computer or into real life. So in this particular instance, started with some MDF, moved on to some poplar, a little bit of oak, a little bamboo, until kind of the final form was figured out. And now that generalized shape has been tweaked enough that we want to see what it's like in real life, we're actually going to do it out of a large block of EPS foam, just because it's super cheap. You don't want to buy a big block of oak and machine it away and kind of waste that wood. Foam is very easy to machine, very quick. You don't want to spend a lot of time and a lot of resources until you know it's actually what you want to make.
So the foam stage will be like looking at it to scale.
To scale.
Blowing up something like this, which was done on the roll-in CNC, which we're going to show you as the starting process.
Yep.
And with this perfected, moving to the bigger version of that.
Yep. So within the first week or so of joining, you were on one of our CNCs, the Roland, which we're going to show you, which has a very nice, simple interface. You simply drop in an STL, and you kind of go through some steps it walks you through, and you're able to start making some stuff. The next step after that, for full scale, part of it is the machine limitation on size. So we're going to move to the shop bot, where we'll machine this with much larger tools, a little more, not necessarily accurately, just more, bigger, and more chips. So that would be the process after that.
Right, and really the design language develops across scales. So as I'm moving from machine to machine, a more solid understanding of the design comes in focus.
Little nuances and details that you think were flushed out in the small thing kind of appear because it's magnified.
Great.
So
should we go to the roll-in?
Yeah, so let's go to the roll-in and see what that process is. Quick, dirty, cheap, tiny, and then move on from there.
Let's do it.
Cool. So we are here at the Roland MDX50. This is the machine that I was mentioning. It's a little simpler to use. We're going to use a cam system that comes with the machine. You can use more complex cam systems if you want, but just to show how simple it is, it's called SRP Player. It is quite literally 5 steps. The very first thing you're going to do is upload your model and say how big it is, make sure everything is to the proper scale. Next step is going to be just the type of milling. Are you flipping your piece? There are 4th axis attachments to this kind of stuff. You're going to create the toolpath where you're going to say, What type of material is it? Is it wood, plastics, etc.? The benefit of this kind of system that was built in conjunction with the machine is that all of the stepovers, feeds and speeds, all of that kind of stuff is built in. So it takes a layer of complexity out of the machining process that's sometimes a little harder for newer people to the system or the process to learn. Then you're gonna select what kind of roughing, what kind of finishing, but it gives you a lot of those feeds and speeds for you. You can get a preview result if you want to sit there and let it process, but it'll also give you an estimated cutting time. So in this particular case, it is 1.6 hours. And then once all of that has been set and the preview looks good, we've already set everything up. You can just start cutting and it gives you the tools that you've selected, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go too much more in depth with this at the moment, but if that is something you'd like to see, please let us know. We'd be happy to make a video on this. The machine has already been set up, so we've already put the tools in at the right required places, set our work offsets on the machine. Again, super simple with this guy. And all I need to do now is hit start cutting, so let's see some chips. All right, we are now in the wood shop. So we're gonna be machining that 2-inch EPS foam. Again, we're using EPS foam because during the iteration process, you wanna do it fast and quick and cheap. Using that final material the first time, there's always something that needs to be tweaked, and it's better to find that out when it's something that's more inexpensive or less expensive, rather than a large, heavy piece of oak or aluminum or whatever it might be. Because this machine is a little bit more complex in its user interface, we programmed everything with Fusion 360 for this portion. There is another program, VCarve Pro, which can do something right in the middle between the SRP player and Fusion. But because this is an organic form, I wanted a little bit more finite control over exactly what the tool path would look like, any tooling marks. We know that Kat likes to see some of those, so we helped incorporate a little bit of that. The program's already done. It's simply going to use 3 tools, and everything's already been set up. So we've set our work coordinate system, we've measured all our tools, the spindle's been warmed up. We're not going to go into how all of that happened, but if you'd like to see that at a further time, please let us know down below. We'd love to hear your comments. So everything's been set up, and all I need to do is hit go now. It'll grab the right tool and we'll be off to the races. So let's see how that goes.
Okay, so we have a finished form at scale, at least for a couple pieces that might be in your series of furniture, like a bench or a chair. Let's test how the scale works out.
Yeah, so this would be the back piece, and you can kind of see how this is going to hit against your back.
Yeah, the grooves feel really nice.
And ergonomically, thinking about also how your legs are going to fit and really kick in. And this is just the top side, so this will be a mirrored form.
Right, so it would be rounded on both sides.
Right.
Yeah. So you would do a similar process where you flip the material or affix 2 pieces.
Exactly. So really thinking about the angle of the backrest.
Yeah. Is the size kind of what you were expecting?
Oh yeah, this is almost exactly to scale.
Yeah. Perfect. And then let's pull these in here because this is using the same form but a different scale and different size, which if we think back to the models that you were showing on your computer, would be like the leg of a stool.
Right, so this would be extruded in aluminum, thinking of that as the stool leg, and then even possibly the development of a smaller stool that's the full form. So you can see that through this process, an entire collection has emerged with this form.
Yeah, it's super neat. All right, Kat, well, super neat to see what it would look like at scale. Let's join Quinn back at the table and talk about, okay, at this phase of prototyping, where are you going next? What's the next area that you're going to explore?
Sounds good.
All right, see you there.
Welcome back to the table. We're going to talk a little bit about what's already happened and the next steps that are to follow. So, as you can see from the Roland, the cedar that was machined came out very nicely. And the super large one as well, and the EPS foam also came out quite well. So, what are your next steps?
So next steps, I'm interested in taking this form to the Tormac
Very
and
cool.
starting to develop the tool path and really refining the machining process
Sure.
for the extruded version of the legs.
Love it. So you're going to go from the SRP player system, which is very brute force. You guys have seen that already, but to the Fusion cam system, which is what we use for this, that will give you a little bit more nuanced control. So there you can see that there's a little bit of patterning here from the machining, and you all have a little more control of that rather than what was done on this one. So incorporating some of that into your design, I believe we discussed off camera.
No, I'm really interested in exaggerating the tool path and
Sure.
incorporating that as part of the form.
Nice, very cool.
What kind of material would you use in the Tormac? Do you know what you'll explore next?
I'm thinking aluminum is
Okay.
going to go on the Tormac, and I'm really interested in automotive paint. And so powder coating might be the next step for the aluminum after that.
Nice. Well, that actually brings up a great point about one of the huge benefits of this place is all of these different tools and equipment and machines and processes are in the same building. So you've gone from the plastics lab to the wood lab, now you're going to go to the metal lab, and the fact that you can do all of that so quickly. I believe you started doing these little guys last week, and then this was this week, and next week, if the form factor is good, you're going to move on to the Tormac.
Right.
So.
That sounds about right. And all of my work really is centered around what machines I have access to.
Sure.
And so being here at mHUB, seeing the factory floor, being in the studio really inspires me.
Yeah, I'm personally when making stuff, I'm like, you get a little bit of a rabbit hole because you only think about the tools that are right in front of you, but you often have to think about like, oh, I have all this other crazy stuff that are technologies that I didn't even realize. I actually, that happens to me a lot. So it's nice that you incorporate all of that into your process.
And seeing people do different things, right? Someone's over there exploring something else, and someone's designing something differently than you, and it brings new ideas to your process. And having access to people like Quinn is pretty rad too.
Absolutely.
Sure,
It really builds the community, and I think that we all feed off of each other, and the way that we approach design and development, the way that we produce a production process.
Yeah.
Designing in a bubble is bad. Try and have as many people around you. That's actually hugely helpful for the iteration process because someone might walk by and say, hey, have you thought about using this technique or something you've never even heard of? So that's one thing while iterating, show as many people as possible. That way, new ideas or somebody else might just spark something that'll totally change your design for the better. Maybe the worst, but you gotta explore those sometimes. You know, 1,000 ways to make a light bulb, all that Edison stuff.
That's great advice. I'm super excited to see the final piece. How long do you think until you get to that stage when I'm sitting on one of your chairs?
Well, I think that the beginning stages of the final piece will start next week. And so we will finalize the tool path, have the material ready, start prepping the stock, and test a final leg at least.
Great. Well, we'll maybe check in on our Instagram account at mHUB Chicago and see various stages of your process until you get to the final piece.
That would be great.
Yeah, super excited. So I think that wraps up for today, our conversation about iterative prototyping in this art and design realm, which was super nice to talk to you, Kat. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having
We'll
me.
put some links in the descriptions to Kat's website and to machines that we used, any resources for prototyping that we think might be helpful. So thank you so much for joining us today. Please like, follow, share, comment. We love having the community engage with us. If you just want to say hi, we'd love that too. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again.